Matt Lenihan, Boxing Social in association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. Always a pleasure to be joined by Spencer Oliver. We're here, big fight week, Zhilei Zhang, Joyce, the rematch. First fight was a good one. What are you expecting on Saturday?
Respect to both guys, by the way, for going into this fight. Joyce more so even than Zhilei Zhang, because the first fight for me was very conclusive. I think that Joyce got the weight totally wrong last time, coming in at 18 stone 2 against Zhilei Zhang, who was 19 stone 8, and you go, what was the thought process behind that? What was what was you thinking coming in at 18 stone 2? Because that means that you're going to be looking to use your mobility, take Zhang into the second half of the fight. I think this was the thought process. Take Zhang into the second half of the fight, wear him down, where we've seen him tire before against Filip Hrgovic last quarter of the fight, and you go, and that's where he would take over, because Joe's got a great engine. Well, guess what? Joyce hasn't got mobility. Guess what? Joyce is a juggernaut for a reason. He ploughs through his opponents. So I think they made a huge mistake coming in at 18 stone 2, and it was very conclusive, like I say, last time. Respect to Joe for going straight back into the immediate rematch. But with the landscape of the heavyweight boxing right now, and with all these fighters and sort of tied up, and the fights that we wanted to see not happening, etc., it was the only fight for both of them. And it's a fight. Joe was 38 yesterday, wasn't he? Now, it's a fight that, yeah, he needs to get redemption, really. But the only way he does that, by the way, his career best performance for me was when he weighed 19 stone 3 when he boxed Joseph Parker. That was, for me, was a career best performance. Now, if you look at that, you go, well, that way he can hold his weight a little bit more. Coming in at 18-2, he lost his punch resistance. He looked more lethargic than he normally does. You know what I mean? And he's not particularly fast anyway. But it was just like, there was a fragile look about the juggernaut. I go, he needs to come in at 19 stone plus to give himself any sort of chance, because then he can hold his own with Zhang early and take over late.
It was so conclusive, the first fight, and I think people sort of overlooked Zhang and his pedigree.
Yeah.
Do you think, how many times do we see a rematch where the complete reverse happens? Do you believe that Joe has that ability to do that in your heart of hearts?
Listen, Matt, that is the $1 million question, but that is the point as well, right? Where you go, so when we see immediate rematches, you go, right, so the team knows what they've got to do, and the fighter knows what he's got to do, and they've got to make those adjustments and everything else. Joyce can't do that, because Joyce, that's not his style. Joyce has one style, right, and he can't make adjustments. He might come with a little bit more of a game plan. He might not be so reckless as he approaches it, but ultimately he's going to come forward, and Zhang does the same. Zhang's a southpaw, and ultimately he's got to stay just outside the pocket, where he was standing inside the pocket, and Zhang was getting off of his left crosses and his right hooks, where he's very dangerous. Joe's got to be just out of range and then just come in as Zhang goes and counter. But it's not an easy job, mate, because that's not Joe's sort of style. So, like I say to you, weight is a huge thing in this, going into this fight. And if he comes in at 19 plus, I'll be happy, put it that way, and I'll go, yeah, come on, because we love Joe, don't we?
Yeah.
Like, he's a great character. I think he's brilliant for the sport. He's pure. Do you know what I mean? I love he's clean and pure, man. And you just go, you know what, I like the guy. So I'm praying that he can do it. It's a tough ask, man, but I'm praying he can do it.
In terms of the heavyweight division, in terms of fights we want to see, they feel like they're so far away from happening. So I think we've got to be grateful we are seeing this. But in terms of next year, Eddie Hearn months ago saying, the fight with Wilder and Joshua, it's locked in. There seems to have been a shift in Saudi in terms of who's actually doing what. Yeah. Disappointed with what the news is coming out. It looks like it's in jeopardy, and for once it seems like both fighters were on a page ready to rock and roll. Yeah, well, Skills Challenge were playing a big part in that, weren't they? And they signed up Alexander Usyk, and they were the ones that were going to make this big, fantastic fight night of Deontay Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, Fury versus Usyk, same night, and bands playing, etc. And it was like a dream come true for every boxing fan. And they don't seem to really have moved from where they was. Frank Warren's done a great thing by going to team up with a different bunch of Saudis, and I think that they are delivering. Obviously, with Riyadh season and with Tyson Fury versus Ngannou, and I know that's not the fight that everybody wanted, but I understand from Fury's point of view, huge event. Every living heavyweight champion in boxing history going to be there and all that. It's going to be massive, mate. The crossover is going to be huge. So I understand it. I totally understand it. I just hope after that we get the fight with Alexander Usyk and we get these fights that we needed, because it feels like 3 years or so we've been waiting for these fights, and we seem to be no closer. So what's happening with Skills Challenge? Not sure right now. But I know that Frank,
and his people seem to be delivering because we've got this big fight on the 28th. So let's see what next year brings. But it's been frustrating, definitely.
I think it's frustrating for everyone. I think from everyone in boxing, because I feel like I've had this conversation with you, but we're going to see it, everything's on board, and then you hear, I spoke to Malik Scott yesterday, he goes, look, we're frustrated, Deontay's ready to go. Well, they're caught in limbo because ideally they want to get out because they're waiting for this pot of gold.
You know what? Yeah, that's the problem. The pot of gold, the Saudis, the pot of gold, right? So the problem is Deontay Wilder, we know wants to go. Tyson Fury, we know wants to go. Andy Ruiz wanted 20 million quid. You know what I mean? Like all these people that Fury was trying to get these fights on with were outpricing themselves because the money wasn't in the pot. You know what I mean? I know Anthony Joshua wants to fight Deontay Wilder. I know that personally. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's the politics of boxing, and I think the big problem has been the Saudis coming into boxing, that the boxers are now all waiting for this big pot of gold, and we've not seen it yet.
Look, I've got to ask you, obviously yesterday was announced with Conor Benn, you're going to get asked him because obviously the vocal on it, but he's back under jurisdiction.
Yeah.
What do you make of it? Because we've seen a lot of arguments online with people talking about he's been cleared to fight, but the opposite argument was that they had not had a clearance for the two failed tests. Is that your understanding, and what do you make of it?
That is totally understanding. The jurisdiction lifted the ban, but he's not cleared his name. And that's what I'm saying, innocent until proven guilty, guilty until proven innocent. Right, and he's not proved his innocence yet. Yes, jurisdiction has lifted the ban, and that's allowed him to go and apply for a licence. He's got an American licence, and obviously one of the weaker states is Orlando in Florida, and they've allowed him to box. Understand that, I get it. But for me, I think you need to clear your name, and that's the most important thing, and he's not cleared his name, and it's been the best part of a year or over a year now, and he's still not cleared his name, and they're just looking for loopholes in the system and whatnot. For him to be able to box. So yeah, he's cleared to box, but he's not cleared his name.
Can I ask you, for him to box abroad though, in America, do the British Boxing Board of Control have to sign a permission to say we're going to allow you to box, or can they just do it without because he doesn't have a licence? How does that work?
He hasn't got a British Boxing Board of Control licence because he handed his licence in, so the Boxing Board can't do anything about it. But if he tries to box in England, then it's obviously down to the British Boxing Board of Control, even if he tries to box under an American licence. And I think the British Boxing Board of Control right now have made an appeal against the jurisdiction. So they've made an appeal, and UK have made an appeal as well. So we have to wait and see how that plays out. But for the sake of the sport, I don't think it's a good look. I think it's a bad look. Do you know what I mean? And it's not being a fucking hater, and I hate it when people say, "Are you being a hater?" Because actually, I really like Conor Benn as a person. But this is bigger than that. I really liked him as a person. I just think the way that it's been dealt with has been a PR fucking disaster, and I think that it's been a mess. But it's not a good look on the sport when you go, right, so, you know what I mean? You throw the narrative out there, oh, Conor's been cleared. Yeah, cleared. They've lifted the ban. But he's not been cleared because he's not proved his innocence. Strict liability says you have to prove how it got in there, and he's not proved that. And so I just think that that's bad for the sport. God forbid something would happen, do you know what I mean? Then what would happen? That would put the sport into disrepute.
Well, we've already seen as well, I think it was Kamil Sokolovsky receiving a 3-year ban, Zalani Tete a 4-year ban, and we've still the things with Alicia Bongana to figure out as well, and obviously Dillian White. But I think one thing we will say about Matchroom, I think we've got to say, it seems to me they are testing quite a lot, and that's a good thing because fighters are getting found out. I know a lot of people saying, oh, it's Groundhog Day, another statement from Matchroom, but absolutely not, because they're actually doing the testing. Do you agree with that?
You can't knock that. Do you know what I mean? If Matchroom are putting more testing in place, then great. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's a good thing for the sport. So respect to Matchroom for doing that. Not knocking that at all. This is all surrounding this whole one mess. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's great at Matchroom again. Let's try and move with the times. Let's move on. Let's make this sport cleaner. That's great. The company are doing the right thing by doing that. Just talking about this Conor Benn situation, it's a mess.
Well, let's finish on a positive. There's a huge fight coming up in a couple of weeks. Josh Warrington and Leigh Wood, an absolute banger for my money. We don't know because we've seen the inconsistent form of Josh. I spoke to Josh the other day. He has the bit between his teeth for this one. Leigh Wood, by all accounts, has as well. Yeah. This is going to be some fight. Talk to me about this fight.
Listen, it's a great fight. It's a pick-em fight, really. I mean, look, Leigh Wood will start because the momentum's with Leigh Wood. Reversing that loss to Mauricio Lara was a great victory. The way that he'd done it, like I say, he was one of them that when we're talking about this, and you got that adaptability. Leigh Wood proved that he got that adaptability. He dealt with his demons because that was a bad knockout, that first fight, and he went away. He made the adjustments and he turned it around. That was brilliant. Josh Warrington, was he coming off that loss to Lopez? Yeah,
didn't get started for 7 rounds.
No, he didn't. He was very slow to get started. I suppose both guys come in the studio and talk sport actually last week, and they were both sitting next to each other, and I'm like, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. And they were both just full of respect for each other, and I went, you know what, I love that because they know what they're both going into. You've got to lean towards Wood because of the momentum that's with him right now and the form that's with him, but don't write Warrington off, because I think that Warrington's one of those, this is what champions do, right? Champions feed off pressure, champions feed off that, and Warrington was sitting in the studio going, go with him, pick him, because that's giving me more, do you know what I mean? And I love that, I love that.
It's such an interesting fight. I think what I liked, what was refreshing, Josh put a big post about it. See, a lot of these fights, there's almost like fake beef in the build-up, pre-hype BS, to put it plainly. Yeah. This one was just built off 2 guys, former 2-time world champion, current 2-time world champion, going at it, and everyone's just intrigued because it's a fucking great fight.
Absolutely, it is a great fight. Like this is what boxing fans want. This is what boxing fans need. This is an old school dust up, man. And like one thing you can guarantee is it'll be a brilliant fight. So yeah, congratulations to both of those guys for getting it on.
Last one from me. I've asked a lot of people this. If you could make any fight in boxing right now, no, apart from Fury Usyk, because we assume that we keep talking about that and all the heavyweight stuff. Yeah. Apart from the heavyweights, what fight could it be? Catchweight, whatever you want.
Jeez, mate, you've really got me on that one. Who would it be?
Any weight division, obviously within reason.
I can't really think right now, mate. You've caught me totally on the off on that one.
Finally,
I had all these different names in my head, and you've thrown that at me. What would be the fight that I would like to see?
Think of all the big names you got out there: Beterbiev, Bivens, Gervonta Davis, Shakur Stevenson, your Devin Haney's. You're the promoter, you're the matchmaker. The type of fight where you go, don't matter what time in the morning it's on, I'm paying my money. So I'm asking everyone this.
A fight that I would love to see, and you mentioned a couple of names there, is Shakur Stevenson versus Gervonta Davis. That's a fight that I would love to see, because for me, they're the two best in probably the hottest division in the world right now. So yeah, from a purist point of view, from a boxing purist point of view, yeah, because like if you're taking the real casual fan, they go, well, they might not appreciate what they're going to see there, but I would love to see that. So the fight I want to really see, I want to see AJ versus Fury. That's the fight that I would love to see.
Yes.
That's the fight that I would like. From a personal point of view, I just think that would be brilliant. Do you know what I mean? I think British boxing, world boxing needs that as well.
I agree. From a purist point of view, though, I think you picked the same one I would have picked. But
there you go. Come on.
Unbelievable.
You put the names in my head, though, to be fair.
Yeah, I tried.
There you go.
Spencer Elba, always a pleasure.
Pleasure. Cheers, mate.